Welcome to Good Day Street Talk. Antoine Lewis reporting. Here's what we're working on today, everybody. New York City Public Schools children going after their dreams in the world of orchestral music. We'll tell you about that. And a little bit later, using artwork to take on social and cultural concerns. A local nonprofit is bringing artists and communities together. But first, there's a musical generating a lot of buzz. There's the picture of it right there, Addie and Uno. It's inspiring audiences and raising awareness about disabilities. It is also the first family musical of its kind to address that matter. And here to tell us all about it is developmental psychologist Dr. Nava Silton, who is also the show's creator, co-creator. Good morning to you, Nava.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so tell me what Addie and Uno is about.
So Addie and Uno introduces disabilities to typical children, parents, and to children with disabilities alike. It's an opportunity to promote a stop bullying platform in the schools and outside of the schools, and to really teach not only about some of the struggles that individuals with disabilities might realistically go through, but also the beautiful strengths and beautiful abilities that are associated with disabilities as well.
Now, tell me the inspiration behind it, Dr. Silton.
So I actually have two nephews on the autism spectrum, and when my first nephew was diagnosed, I actually graduated Cornell a year early and spent the year with that sister. And I asked her, what is the most challenging aspect of this disorder for you? And she said the hardest part of the disorder is that children flock to all my other kids, and they treat Ellie like he's part of the wallpaper.
Oh, no.
They don't interact with him. They don't take the opportunity to recognize his beautiful strengths and celebrate his beautiful abilities. And so I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to create a medium to teach typical kids and to interest them in kids with differences and kids who have beautiful abilities but might have some struggles as well. I started with storyboarded episodes of a show. I brought it to schools and they said, this is great, but we'd love to see it in comic book format. We'd love to see have it in book format. So I created a full comic book series called the Real Abilities Comic Book Series.
You did?
I did. And then with help from wonderful students at Marymount Manhattan College. And then people said, okay, this is great. We love the comic book series, but we'd love to see a show. Are you still thinking about a show? So I took the last 5K I had in one of my grants. I built 5 puppets with it, with the beautiful work of David Fino. And then I started to pursue an off-Broadway musical, and I invited Bonnie Gleischer on to join me to do the music and lyrics. And now it's being produced at Theater Row by Michael Dangora.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. Now, you've got a psychology background.
Yes.
That's how we've come to know each other professionally.
Yes.
You've collaborated with me and been a source for me on stories and an expert in pieces that I've done. But taking on the role of lyricist and composer and writing a book is enough of a challenge. How did you navigate that, you know, in and of itself, and then given the subject matter that you're talking about?
So I wrote the book, and Bonnie Gleischer did the music and lyrics, and we really had a beautiful collaboration, writing together and really welcoming this beautiful world on the canvas, on the on stage. Yeah, it really is. You know, I am an academic, and delving into this world of theater has been a real joy in many ways. A lot of things to learn, but it's been a beautiful opportunity to showcase the show and to celebrate these beautiful abilities on a different kind of screen.
So we're looking at video from the show, and so are all 5 puppets used? And just tell us, like, this puppet here, what's his role, or what's he do?
That's Uno. So Uno is our principal character who has autism. He struggles with a lot of his social skills. He struggles with eye contact, joint attention, a lot of those types of things. But he is beautifully brilliant in math and spatial orientation, and he is participating in a math competition. And during the show, his friends are beautifully encouraging, allowing him to really kind of let go of many of his fears and anxieties to pursue this really exciting math competition.
You also talked about you using it as a platform to address bullying, which you know unfairly can accompany children who are different, from their peers. How are you addressing it?
So just as you said, children with disabilities are at least 2 to 3 times more likely to be bullied than their typical peers. So this is something that I really felt very strongly about addressing. So there is, in the show and in the comic book series, you see a lot of not only introducing bullying, but kind of showing how wonderful it is to be kind and be empathic, and to stand up to bullies and to work on rehabilitating bullies rather than just saying they're bad, saying what can we do? How can we show them the beauty of kindness? How can we show them the beauty of empathy rather than just focusing on, oh, they're bullies, they're bad. And so I think that brings out a real beauty and learning experience for all who get a chance to watch it or read the comic books.
So now what's been the reaction from both the kids and the adults alike?
It's been incredible. I mean, it's been so much more amazing than I ever could have imagined. What's so exciting is that, you know, parents of typical kids and typical kids themselves are learning a tremendous amount about their peers with differences. And kids with different disabilities that come from different backgrounds are able to see themselves showcased so favorably, so beautifully on the stage or in the comics. And so it really offers everyone a learning experience, and a beautiful one at that.
With regards to the information, as far as, you know, people wanting to go and see it, you know, are you reaching out to schools? Are they bringing the kids in and making it like part of an extracurricular activity?
Yes. So fortunately, we've had many schools reach out to us. So many schools have come to see the show on Theater Row, and then we've also gone out to many schools, and we have many more engagements coming up to bring the show.
You're already on the road.
Yeah, we're already on the road.
You do your tour already.
Yeah, and we're having talkbacks at the end of those shows to have an opportunity for the students to really discuss what they've learned, and questions that they have, really comprehend it. And some schools have done both the show and then also the comic book series, and that really extends the lessons from the show in the classroom. So it's really nice.
Two pieces of information. You're on Theater Row. Again, the theater is?
Theater is the Kirk Theater on Theater Row. It's on 42nd.
West 42nd.
West 42nd, between 9th and 10th.
9th and 10th?
Between 9th and 10th, you got it. And it's wonderful. And beautiful space. The comic book series, those are available at realabilities.com, and also, you know, anytime through me. And the show is addieanduno.com. So any information about the show, addieanduno.com, telecharge.com, you can learn all about it. And then, again, Real Abilities comic book series is realabilities.com.
I have to ask you this, because I know you're also a professor at Marymount Manhattan.
You got
right
it.
here on the Upper East Side.
That's right.
And now that you've delved into this, any thoughts about changing careers, or do you see more type situations where you get to share your true educational background in a different capacity, because you're still providing therapy, if you will, to people who may not even be understanding that this is what they're getting? Any thoughts about moving on to perhaps pursuing this even further?
So this has been a tremendous world that I've entered into, and is very exciting. I think what's so nice is that as a developmental psychologist, there's so many areas that are important to tackle. And what's great is to know that there's so many different outlets through which to disseminate important developmental information, important educational information. And so now, whether it's on theater or through comic books or other forms of text or through TV shows, I think I really opened up my mind as to the possibilities of disseminating important information in kind of these creative media.
Don't ever stop teaching tolerance.
Thank you so much.
Joining us right now, developmental psychologist Dr. Nava Silton. Nava, thanks for being with us this morning. This is something so many parents are concerned about. What do they do if they find out their child is being bullied?
So there are a lot of preventive things that you can do initially to try to prevent bullying or to intervene when bullying occurs. So first of all, boosting your kids' self-confidence by having them participate in activities that excite them and that they enjoy can really help them contend with a bullying situation when it unfortunately might arise, because they'll have the confidence to stand up to the bully. I think it's really important for parents to really keep an open environment, open level of communication in the home, so if anything does occur, a parent can intervene immediately. And also to really encourage your kids to be kind, to stand up to bullies. The research shows that when people stand up to bullies, it stops the bullying within 10 seconds, 57% of the time.
Now, standing up to bullies, and I've heard that, I like that. Yeah. What about, though, standing up to cyberbullying? If you're being cyberbullied, it's a huge component to what we're talking about.
Right. So one thing with cyberbullying is you want to be really careful before you post on social media. You want to be very careful about what images you post. You really want to reflect upon it before posting happens. You also want to be very careful about your privacy controls, and just be careful as a parent. Try to be, again, have that open line of communication so you know what your child is doing on media.
What are some of the warning signs of cyberbullying? Because a lot of kids, teenagers, are pretty tight-lipped when it's happening to them.
Right. So there is a lot of secrecy that can come with cyberbullying. You might have your kids being impacted and you don't recognize it, you don't know it. And that's why the open line of communication is so important. And when you look at kind of the social, psychological, and academic impacts that cyberbullying and regular bullying have, it can be really detrimental. It can look a lot like depression. And again, that can impact the academic, social, and psychological well-being of your child.
So there seems to be more bullying awareness than ever before in our history, ever. But you know, anti-bullying campaigns, and those are great, but there's at the same time more bullying, it seems, than ever before. Why is that we're so anti-bullying, yet bullying is happening everywhere?
I think bullying is really easy to do now that social media is so rampant, and it's so easy, especially when you don't have a face to it, to write horrible things, unfortunately, and not really have the accountability that you do when you do have the face-to-face interaction.
And real quick, standing up to a bully works in person. Something tells me online, you said you got to be very careful. It's not that simple. If you post back, you stand up to a bully online, you can make things worse, you can attract others, right?
Yeah, I mean, things can occur in different fashions. There are different kinds of impacts and outcomes. Sometimes your intended outcome is not actually what occurs, but thankfully there's some really wonderful programs out there that really help prevent and intervene when bullying comes about.
And Nava, you have one of those programs. Where can people go if they find that their child is being bullied? Could they go to your website?
Yeah, so we have a whole comic book series, 10 comic books and instructional manuals that have been in schools around the country. It's called Real Abilities, the Real Abilities Educational Comic Book Series. It's at realabilities.com, and we also have a brand new off-Broadway musical that's going to be playing at the 14th Street Y between September 2nd and September 24th. And if you want to learn more about that, it's addieanduno.com, and it promotes a strong Stop Bullying platform. It teaches you that it's nice to be nice. It teaches a bit about disabilities and really has a lot of these strong, important components to it.
Very nice. Again, realabilities.com. We can find a lot more information there.
Realabilities.com and addieanduno.com.
Nava Silton, thank you so much.
Everybody knows what it's like to be bullied, right?
That's right.
Was anybody ever a bully?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
we do it too.
And you still remember it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You still remember that
It stays
bully.
with you. It stays with you. You still remember the name of the person who did it. Yeah.
Willie Lump Lump was his. I can't believe that was his second grade. His last name was Lump Lump.
Wow.
Willie Lump Lump. Boy. Anyway, I'm sure he grew up.
Most important lessons kids can learn are not covered in textbooks.
Wanda Schmidt shows us how some students on the Upper West Side are learning compassion for kids with special needs.
You could have read an article about autism. Instead, you learned about a boy. How did that affect you, seeing him go through his day?
Students at Manhattan Day School on the Upper West Side are learning about more than math and science.
He tried to communicate with people the best he could.
The private school has adopted Real Abilities as part of its curriculum. Real Abilities is a comic book series about children with developmental and physical challenges, ranging from autism to ADHD, dyslexia, and stuttering. Child psychologist Dr. Nava Silton began creating the comic book series after her sister's son was diagnosed with autism.
She said the number one hardest thing for her about autism in her son was that people treated him like the wallpaper. They never took the time to get to know him. They never took the time to understand him.
He can't really communicate with people that well, and he's not really that good at eye contact.
As soon as they saw the initial few characters, instead of asking, why would we learn about this person, they asked, can we learn about other conditions? Why isn't there a book about a character with Down syndrome? Why isn't there one with Williams syndrome?
I'm learning, like, don't bully anyone just because you don't know what's going on in their life. A lot of people in this world have disabilities and strengths from those disabilities. They have teachers, they are smart, and
So they're just like you.
they're just like you, and it's not like they're different, quote unquote. They're the same. They just have a hard time with some stuff.
these 9- and 10-year-olds are wise beyond their years. And now it turns out other private schools across the country are considering adopting real abilities as part of their curriculum as well. On the Upper West Side, Linda Schmidt, Fox 5 News.
I love everything, I love everything. Time stops, dance, shout. It makes me wanna, it makes me wanna. But I wanna be brave, but I also wanna stay here alone. 'Cause it feels so scary doing it all on my own. And I wanna be bold like you, but keep it to myself at home. 'Cause it feels so frightening letting go all that I know. And every time I see a star shoot across the sky, I look at it and think if they can, why can't I? Watch me
Relayed the message that my mother's watching in my apartment right now, and when I mentioned to her before the break, she said I don't call home enough. So as we head into Mother's Day weekend, I have to, and I don't.
I've asked you that question before.
I like to text. I hate talking on the phone.
you said
I will
that,
call home more.
He did tell me that,
I will.
Mrs. Lacey.
I got to do that.
Well, Jessica Formoso shows us why talking to mom really does make everything better.
I don't know about you, but I talk to my mother every day. And when I have good news or bad news, the first person I want to call is my mom. What is it about mothers that they just make everything better? Dr. Nava Silton, a clinical psychologist, says a mother is the foundation of everything. The first bond you ever create is with your mom.
Already in utero, you develop this incredible relationship with your mother, and that really strong attachment bond really continues throughout development.
A recent study at the University of Missouri found that young women felt overwhelmingly more positive after sharing a difficult experience with their mother, even if she didn't immediately have a solution to the problem.
I always call her if I have Mom, I have a serious problem, and she is the one who knows how to talk me down. And I mean, it's very mothers are the best.
They have this incredible way of comforting their children. They've had to comfort them in many ways, whether it be through sickness or through challenging situations. And so I think they're used to knowing exactly what to say to make things right.
Some may not live close to their mother, yet that doesn't keep them from picking up the phone and calling often.
I call my mom at least once a week.
I call her every day.
I call my mom for the good, bad, and the ugly. That's what moms are for. They're supposed to listen to everything, good and bad.
Silton says when men pick up the phone to make a phone call, it's for information. But when women call, it's to try to establish an emotional bond.
There's this real level of emotional intimacy that you can achieve in having a conversation with your mother.
An important bond to remember as we celebrate Mother's Day. On the Upper East Side, I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
Motherhood is a full-time job with constant overtime and limited breaks. Mothers are regularly on the go, and the demands can be overwhelming. Psychology professor Nava Silton says that moms often need a recharge.
Motherhood can be very stressful, whether it's financial stresses, time stresses, just trying to get a whole lot done in a very short period of time. And so I think it's really important for mothers to be rejuvenated and refreshed.
Moms are taking the much-needed time for themselves with a momcation, a vacation with other moms who understand the need for me time.
It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it.
Judy Kosh is a mom of 2 boys and knows what it feels like to be on call 24/7.
It's nonstop. We're in this activity, that activity, this sport, this class. It's constant go, go, go.
A close friend convinced Judy to take time for herself.
We were talking and she said, you know, I go on these mom trips all the time. Why don't you come? I kind of laughed at her. I'm like, what do you mean a mom trip? I can't leave my kids. I can't leave my husband. No, you have to come.
For a change, moms are able to do whatever they want or do nothing at all. A momcation typically runs anywhere from about 2 to 3 days to up to a week. And this time off is not only a benefit for mom, it's also a benefit for the rest of the family. Nava says that it's good for children to see their parents' needs met.
think it's very important for kids to see that balance that ideally needs to be achieved in a family situation.
I came back, I was a better mom, a more patient mom, a better wife. You know, you learn to appreciate what you have at home because you got to have that break from it all.
Reporting from the Upper East Side, Audrey Puente, Fox 5 News.
You've heard of helicopter parenting, when a parent constantly hovers over their child's every move, but what about snowplow parenting?
A snowplow parent is a parent who tries to remove or clear away obstacles so their child has an easier time achieving success.
Developmental psychologist Dr. Nava Silton says it's become an ever-common parenting phenomenon, and it was the topic of the New York Times Sunday Styles cover story after last week's news that dozens of high-profile and celebrity parents snowplowed their children's way into top universities through cheating, lies, and millions of dollars.
In order for them to have the life skills they need to achieve in college and beyond, you want to teach them problem-solving skills. You want them to have resilience and grit.
What do you think about this concept of snowplow parenting?
Honestly, it's hard not to sympathize because we all want to do the best thing for our kids, but at some point you have to let them fail.
Parents on the Upper East Side acknowledge snowplow parenting is a thing.
In Manhattan, it's probably way more prevalent than one might assume.
You do what you feel you need to do to make sure your kids are safe and are successful and happy.
But they also acknowledge the downside.
I don't agree with that at all. I think that the kids have to stand on their own 2 feet. We did, they have to, and everything is a learning experience.
Bottom line, says Dr. Silton, when you snowplow a path for your child, you do it to help them, but ultimately it can hurt them.
They don't know how to manage themselves in everyday life. They need to know how to deal with conflict resolution with roommates. They need to know how to deal with not having enough money for something or not having studied enough for an exam.
When you start snowplowing for your children when they're little, it can be a hard habit to break. The New York Times cited a survey it did of parents whose kids are between the ages of 18 to 28, and 75% admitted they'd made appointments for their adult child. On the Upper East Side, I'm Stacey Delicat, Fox 5 News.
All public school students in the state of New York will notice a new entry in their list of subjects, mental health. A new law went into effect this school year requiring mental health be a part of health education classes at state schools. Renee Ryder is the Associate Commissioner with the New York State Education Association.
So that every youth between the ages of kindergarten and 12th grade could understand more about mental health and really understand that mental health is a part of health. And so that we can try to decrease the stigma that comes along with mental health.
The mandate comes as intentional self-harm remains among the top 10 causes of death in the United States, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. In 2016, suicide was the second leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 10 and 34 years old.
It's now to bring to the youth more information, more knowledge, so they understand what it means and they can understand themselves and they can understand others and really try to provide that kind of support and get the help and the needs met of every youth and those around them.
Manhattan psychologist Dr. Nava Silton thinks the state is doing the right thing. She says that getting kids to discuss the subject is crucial, especially when it comes to boys, as they are less inclined to discuss their feelings than girls typically are.
It's important for men to have an opportunity to speak about emotions and to recognize the importance of speaking about emotions and recognize that that's a good thing to be able to do and not something that's just reserved for women and for girls.
Right now, New York is the first state requiring that mental health be included in health education classes. Virginia appears to be set to implement a similar mandate as well. Ryder and those at the State Education Association hope that other states will follow New York's lead.
Some people say, you know, the feds should come out with a requirement like we did in New York State. Maybe that'll happen. I know that we're taking care of New York right now, and I hope that we'll be happy to help with any resources to get it to make it happen in any other state across the nation as well.
From the Upper East Side, Antoine Lewis, Fox 5 News. The term midlife crisis typically describes the anxiety people experience around a milestone birthday or reaction to life changes. Many have seen it.
A co-worker of mine who lost his house because he couldn't make ends meet, you know, with the mortgage, even him working almost 7 days a week.
But there are many others who do not believe there is such a thing.
I don't think so. I think that's probably a thing of a past.
I think that people could be experiencing the stressors and the pressures that often accompany what we call and what many call a midlife crisis.
Nava Silton is a psychology professor at Marymount Manhattan College. She describes the triggers that can cause the midlife anxiety.
People have to worry about money, they have to worry about their jobs and ascending the work ladder. They have to worry about child rearing or different features related to that kind of generativity.
Still, a number of experts say it's all a myth, that there is no scientific correlation between a man turning 50 then running out to buy a brand new convertible. Marge Lorraine has heard what skeptics say. She doesn't buy it.
I think if a person is in their 50s and loses their job, I think they could definitely wind up getting a midlife crisis. I think that their aspect and their thought process about the future totally drastically changes.
It also appears the face of a midlife crisis is no longer late 40s, 50s.
You know, they talk about a quarter life crisis hitting at around age 25, and I can see in my own students at the university, I can see how many of them are worried about rent, they're worried about being financially independent, they're worried about what professions they're going to choose and which intimate relationships they're going to pursue.
Oh God, then those are kids that are living in their mother's basements and don't really have a job, so no. So midlife crisis for people that really have real issues, not for 20-year-olds, sorry.
And whether you believe a midlife crisis does happen, talk to an expert about your anxiety or find some other way to cope.
What's your way to stay grounded?
Sometimes I'll go out and have a drink.
On the Upper East Side, Antoine Lewis, Fox 5 News.
They call it TBH, short for To Be Honest, and the street is the kids just can't get enough of it.
I feel like this diamond here, it's pink, which means it's a girl who sent it. I got friendliest person, sickest phone cases.
Described as a game mixed with social media, I'm here at cheerleading practice in Fairlawn tonight to learn more.
If you don't like the options, you can just press like shuffle and you'll get new people. It's like if you feel sad right that second, you can get like more compliments.
And it's anonymous, so you know, like you never know who it is, and yeah, so then you like feel good about yourself, and yeah.
Cool. So it's all positive messages.
Yeah.
Similar apps that allow users to engage anonymously have become popular with teens and tweens, but often become tools for bullying. For parents like Jennifer Angerson, it's refreshing to see an app encouraging students to say nice things anonymously.
It's important to me to know that they're not hurting each other with words and you know, because they can be weapons, as we know. So it's nice to hear that it's positive.
It became the must-have app about a week ago. Yep, it's fresh, and on some level, that's part of the intrigue. Aside from the fun, Nava Silton, a psychologist, says it's a healthy exercise.
I think this positive reinforcement is really crucial to their social and emotional development, to their sense of self-confidence and self-esteem, their sense of self-efficacy, and I'm so happy that an app like that focuses on strengths is something that is becoming popular.
And it's fun to use because like you could tell people like what you like about them, and it's like fun to use. It makes everybody happy. There's nothing negative.
Reporting in Fairlawn, New Jersey, I'm Zachary Quiche, Fox 5 News.
Well, it's reasonable. Sometimes you just need a day off from work to clear your head.
That's right. A web developer from Michigan is being called a hero for doing just that. Jen Lammers is in the newsroom with the national debate. She started with just one email, Jen.
You know, Stephen Derry, many of us have joked about it at some point or another. I need a mental health day because, you know, we're either exhausted or stressed. Sometimes there's something personal happening and maybe we don't feel comfortable sharing that with our boss. Well, one woman in Michigan shared her experience online to the entire world, and it wound up sparking a national debate. Should companies take mental health days more seriously?
When Madeline Parker sent an email to her team at work saying she was taking some mental health days off, she never expected the email she got back from her boss, applauding the 26-year-old for her decision. "I can't believe this is not standard practice at all organizations," wrote CEO Ben Congleton. "You are an example to us all."
That was a big deal to me, just to give Madeline some gratitude for the courage to stand up and give that message.
Congleton and Parker work at Michigan-based tech firm Olark. Parker herself suffers from anxiety, depression, and PTSD, and says she was so surprised by her CEO's response, she posted it on her Twitter page. And soon people all over the country chimed in, some saying they wish their bosses were more sympathetic.
I think the biggest lesson to take away from this really is that mental health is health and that mental illness is a big deal.
And psychologists say time away from the daily grind can help. It might even make employees more productive when they come back.
Employees need opportunities to feel refreshed. They need opportunities for self-care, to take care of themselves, for mental health, and they will absolutely be more efficient.
Time Inc. Chief Human Resource Officer Greg Giangrande says as the stigma of mental health wears off, there's been a shift in the corporate world.
So where it was very common to say you have X number of personal days, you have X number of sick days, you have X number of vacation days, many companies now are moving to just a paid time off.
As for Congleton, he says he's happy to help push the discussion forward. So eventually, a mental health day isn't something we feel we should have to whisper about.
People don't talk about it very much. And so I think that is probably why, this dialogue and that tweet and, the resulting media attention is going so big, because we sort of touched on this topic that a lot of people are feeling every day, but not a lot of people are talking about. And
it's estimated that 1 in 5 American adults, or 43 million people, experience mental illness in a given year.
For women, a simple tweet can become an opening for serious cyberbullying. John Corrales has a look at that problem for us tonight.
You might think, yeah, it's the internet. If I'm watching the Knicks or the Rangers and tweeting about it, I'm going to get some harassment online from the other team's fans, but that's not what this is. For women, it's a lot worse. In fact, a recent Pew Research Center survey says younger women get it especially rough. It's often prolonged and sexual in nature.
The retaliation was extremely brutal. Things like, I don't know if I can say it, but
say it.
You should have been aborted, you should be drinking bleach.
Nicole Schumann's story is a familiar one. She's a big hockey fan who hopped onto a radio station's Facebook page to take part in a discussion, and immediately she became a target.
0 to 100, right away. There was no discussion, there was no argument. It was just, my way or the highway.
That Pew survey found a quarter of all women 18 to 24 were sexually harassed online, a problem especially notable in the male-dominated world of sports.
I think a lot of women, they get a bunch of the go back to the kitchen stuff.
Anna Horford's brother Al plays for the Boston Celtics. She's very outspoken on Twitter, which makes her a regular target for vicious attacks and even spoof accounts aimed at embarrassing her.
At this point, it has become such a common occurrence that I'm just super used to it.
The attackers are almost always random, some are repeat offenders, and even if their accounts are blocked or eliminated, many just create new ones.
I just think people feel so brave behind a screen that they can say anything they want.
When you're saying that kind of stuff, you have to realize that you're talking to another human being, and you have to ask yourself if you would say that to the person's face.
Hopefully this skank Julie DeCaro is Bill Cosby's next victim.
The power and difficulty of those words being said directly to women was the basis of this More Than Mean project by the blog Just Not Sports. Random men read the often threatening and vulgar tweets to the sports reporters who were targeted.
A lot of C word.
There's a lot of C words,
yeah.
Psychology professor Nava Silton says anonymity fuels the attacks.
When people are behind a veil, if they think they're protected and nobody knows their identity, then they'll feel much more willing to say things they wouldn't normally say in person.
In the end, this is cyberbullying, but these women say it's time to rise up and show their opinions are just as valid as anyone's.
As women, we need to come together and we need to normalize, talking about sports. It's not a man's world.
I think women are a huge part of sports and a huge part of fanship, and I think that our voices need to be heard just as much as anybody else's, and that we do provide a different perspective on a lot of things that happen.
John Corrales, Fox 5 News.
Pilots and depression. Certainly a job with a lot of pressure that could trigger something dangerous. A live guest will help us to figure it all out and what we can do about it. Right after Jessica Formoso gives us a better look at the problem right now.
A plane may be the safest way to travel. However, a new study published by the journal Environmental Health reveals a lot of pilots have depression symptoms. Nava Silton, a psychology professor at Marymount Manhattan College, says she's not surprised to hear that.
The incredible pressure and stress and long hours definitely can be triggers for some underlying mental health issues.
The anonymous survey was prompted by the 2015 plane crash of a Germanwings flight. An investigation found found the co-pilot intentionally crashed the plane, killing 150 passengers on board. He reportedly had a history of severe depression. According to the findings, out of the 1,850 commercial airline pilots surveyed from 50 countries, nearly 13% met the criteria for depression, and slightly over 4% reported having suicidal thoughts in a span of 2 weeks.
What the report showed, that 13% of pilots have this stress level. However, while that is twice the norm of depression throughout the world, however, it is the same as that experienced by other people in stress levels, such as the military and such as police officers.
According to J.P. Tristani, a former airline and military pilot, there are 100,000 airline flights a day, 37 million a year. However, he says pre-planned suicides like the one caused by the Germanwings co-pilot is 1 out of 100,000.
One of the most difficult challenges that pilots face is the hours of the occupation.
Tristani, who has over 40 years of experience, says being a pilot has its challenges, and as the study points out, long hours could be to blame.
It's 24/7, holidays, 365 days a year.
Many pilots with symptoms of depression may not seek treatment due to fears of negative career consequences.
To make it okay to seek mental health counseling because of this high stress environment.
In June, the Federal Aviation Administration announced it will require medical examiners who screen commercial pilots to undergo more training to help them better identify warning signs of mental illnesses. Still, though, commercial pilots will not need to undergo psychological testing. I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
The loss of a lot of talented people, coupled with a roller coaster political season and terrorism, have made 2016 a difficult year for so many of us. And despite all that, most Americans are feeling optimistic about the new year. Stacey Dalcat shows us what people are looking forward to.
Looking back on 2016, Americans for the most part were not too happy about how it turned out. Only 18% said things got better in the last year, while about a third said they got worse.
I'm happy it's over.
I'm glad to have it go.
New Yorkers are ready to put 2016 in the past.
Presidential election, de Blasio, transit, could have been better.
I thought the tenor of the election was really unpleasant, and I wasn't thrilled with the outcome.
The election was by far the biggest story of the year, but the Orlando nightclub massacre and terror attacks in Europe also weighed heavily on Americans, as did the police shootings of unarmed men and the killings of police officers that followed. All of it bred increased anxiety for many, says Marymount Manhattan College psychology professor Nava Silton.
All around, there's a bit more need for counseling and clinical services to try to cope with transitions, to try to cope with a lot of the unknowns.
I think we lost a lot of great people this year, which is really disappointing.
This is what it sounds like when the doves cry.
2016 was the year we lost music icons like Prince and David Bowie and legends like Muhammad Ali. But there were bright moments too. Americans polled by the AP say they'll remember the 2016 Olympics and the Chicago Cubs World Series win. And things are looking up for next year. 55% say they think things will improve in 2017.
Keep your health, keep your spirit up, and look forward to the next year ahead.
Hopefully, you know, everybody could just put a lot of things to the side and come together as a city and as a world.
One thing it seems Americans can agree on is how they'll ring in 2017. The AP found about 60% plan to watch the ball drop in Times Square on television. On the Upper West Side, I'm Stacey Dalcat, Fox 5 News.
Unfortunately, yes. I know, it's awful. I try to turn it off, but it's just sitting there. It taunts you. No.
I have my own business and I work from home, so I pretty much check my email always.
Email pretty much anytime it goes off.
You have an obligation to respond.
It can really enhance your stress. They say just even the anticipation that you might have to read a work email can increase your stress, can increase your anxiety. You don't feel like you can unplug. It can impact most the relationship you have with your partner. because you only have so many cognitive resources. You need to allocate those resources appropriately.
Dr. Nava Silton is a psychologist and is putting some responsibility on companies.
I think it's really important for companies to understand that employees are going to do their best work when they feel rejuvenated.
Not all companies will give the green light to that idea, so Dr. Nava Silton says take your phone and turn it off for 2 hours. And during that time, take a walk in the park, kind of like here at Central Park. And the most important thing, spend time with loved ones, not on your phone.
I choose not to have access to it.
How so?
Once I log out from work, I don't log back in.
And she's got the right idea. In Central Park, Reagan Medji, Fox 5 News.
Sooner or later, all of us will retire and start collecting Social Security. The challenge is deciding when to do so.
Unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Roger Ma is a Manhattan-based certified financial planner.
In the past, what we call full retirement age, or where someone is eligible for their full Social Security benefit, used to be at age 65. Now it's more so between 66 and 67.
2017 information from the Social Security Administration reports that just over 34% claim benefits early at the age of 62. Just over 10% start at the more traditional age 65, while nearly 4% wait until they are 70. Ma breaks down the plus and minuses.
So there's definitely implications for taking it at 62. One of the main implications is you'll receive benefits longer, but you'll receive a decreased benefit, and that decreased benefit could be as much as 30% less. On the flip side, for each year that you delay taking Social Security beyond your full retirement age, your benefit will increase by 8% a year.
Some, like Blanca Bedoit, have it already figured out.
What age do you want to retire at?
Maybe 65.
And some aren't ready.
Because I love my work and I still have a brain. I like working.
Still, deciding when to leave the workforce is not easy. Psychologist Dr. Nava Silton says some anxiety is to be expected.
There's a fear of a loss of identity, there's a fear of financial stability, and then a lack of financial stability. There's a fear that you have so many relationships associated with work, and maybe that will also go. So, but the good news is that with good planning for retirement, a lot of these things can really be, a lot of this anxiety can really be alleviated.
The Social Security Administration's website has a calculator that lets you see how much in benefits you would receive under different age scenarios. The AARP has a similar function on its homepage as well. And talking to someone in person is always a good idea.
It might make sense to reach out to a financial planner to maybe get a second opinion or a double check on what you're thinking.
From the Upper East Side, Antoine Lewis, Fox 5 News.
Today we asked New Yorkers, at what age does adolescence typically end?
The age of 14?
Maybe 16 or so, I would guess.
I would say right around the ages of like 19 or 20. I think it's getting later and later.
Adolescence has long been thought of as the teenage period of a child's life. Now, a report from the Lancet Child and Adolescent Journal says that the societal and biological changes have prolonged the adolescent years from the ages of 10 to 19 to now ending at 24 years old.
That sounds a little odd to me.
You're definitely not done growing when you're 18 years old. I feel like, hopefully I'm not done growing. I'm only 5'4".
Nava Silton is a developmental psychologist. She says that the societal move to extend the age bracket of adolescence is valid.
Most kids are not fully financially independent, healthcare independent, or educationally independent by age 19, right? There's still, many are pursuing college and graduate school, and so they're really quite dependent on their parents or caregivers.
When you're in your early 20s, you make a lot of mistakes, and by the time you get to like 25, 26, you figure out more about who you are and what you want to do with your life.
The report highlights that young people are also getting married and having children later than before. Biologically, the brain needs time to catch up as well.
Our brains don't fully develop until about age 25, 26. So it makes sense if they want to extend it a bit to give kids a little more time before they have to go out into the world on their own.
For 20-somethings who object to being referred to as adolescent, Nava says that there is a more comfortable category.
There's a term called emerging adulthood, which looks at kids kind of between the ages of 18 and 29. And it's kind of a nice transitional term between adolescence and adulthood.
There is talk that this classification change can lead to policy change, like extended youth support services until the age of 25. That could be very helpful for some families. One of the first daughters has started her first job.
All right, Jessica Formoso shows us Sasha Obama's new summer gig.
President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle have tried to give their daughters a normal life, and it looks like they accomplished it. Sasha Obama is spending 4 hours a day working at a seafood restaurant on Martha's Vineyard. Would you like a Coke with that? Those may be some of the words Sasha Obama is using these days. She is serving the public. As seen in these photos, the 15-year-old is spending her summer working at Nancy's restaurant.
More power to her. That shows that she is not coasting on being the president's daughter.
The first daughter, who at work goes by her full name, Natasha, is working a cash register, bussing tables, and doing prep work before the restaurant opens for lunch.
Families who have money do a disservice to their children when they kind of have their children grow up with a silver spoon in their mouths.
Nava Silton, associate professor of psychology at Marymount Manhattan College, says this job is boosting Sasha's self-confidence and teaching her the value of $1.
I really applaud the Obamas for this choice. I think kids need to get a sense of independence from working. I think they need to build a strong work ethic and socialization, and I think it accomplishes all of those tasks.
Many taking their hats off for the First Lady and to the President.
It's great. I mean, he's done a wonderful job with those kids. He's made them really grounded.
The restaurant reportedly pays its summer employees between $12 to $15 an hour. It is said to be the go-to spot for the Obamas during their annual getaway to the vineyard.
It was pretty interesting, I guess, that she's like regular person.
The rest of the Obamas will arrive to the vineyard this weekend to kick off their vacation. There is talks that that will be the end of Sasha's summer gig. Sasha does not show up to work alone. She does have Secret Service agents go with her to work. After all, she is the first daughter. On the Upper East Side, I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
Are emojis sexist? Girls tend to use them more than boys, although I use them plenty. But except for some dancing ladies, most of the emojis are males. I've never actually thought about this before. Jen Lahmer shows us now why there is a campaign underway to change it.
Emojis, they really are a second language.
What's your favorite emoji?
I think the one with the monkey with his hands over his eyes is pretty funny. A girl that goes like this. I guess the laughing one, the cry laughter.
As the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but do those words really speak to everyone? In the last several years, the emoji keyboard has gone through some facelifts. Last year it was updated with new icons to reflect different ethnicities, families, and sexual preferences. But what about gender? Executives at Procter & Gamble's Always brand say the keyboard still lags behind when it comes to women.
It's funny because there's only the woman that's a bride, and that's about it. There's no policewoman.
In a new video, as part of its Like a Girl campaign, Always is asking the Unicode Consortium, the gatekeepers of all things emoji, to add icons that reflect the modern woman. It also asked girls what emojis they'd like to see by sending a tweet with the Like a Girl hashtag.
There's no girls in the profession emojis unless you count being a bride a profession.
I've got rock climbing, biking, playing basketball, and the girls are doing this.
And with young women sending out more than 1 billion emojis a day, psychologist Dr. Nava Silton says any stereotype, no matter how small, can snowball into a bigger problem.
For that reason, I think it's really important to have variation for both genders. And if there's limited variation for women and girls, I think that can be really frustrating for them and can even potentially hurt their self-esteem and sense of self-efficacy.
We reached out to the Unicode Consortium on whether it would consider making those changes, and we did not hear back. Reporting from the newsroom, Jennifer Lammers, Fox 5 News.
It is unclear just how many babies may have been exposed to tuberculosis. The parents who called News 4 gave birth more than 2 months ago, yet they were notified by the hospital Wednesday an employee in the maternity ward tested positive for the disease, which more than a century ago was the leading cause of death in the U.S.
Babies, young children are vulnerable to weakened immune systems.
But Dr. Nava Silton says the airborne bacterial infection, which mainly affects the lungs, is now one of the most curable if detected and treated. The hospital says it just found out about the employee's infection today.
Dr. Nava Silton is back with us right now. This is breakthrough stuff, but as we've said, it's still new, right? They're still working on this.
It's still a newfangled technology,
right.
And you know, there's a lot more that we'll probably need to see, but it really does give us hope. We do have other forms of artificial intelligence that have been used with the mental health community that has also been quite promising. So this really gives me a lot of hope for this technology as well.
So this technology is going to work. You know, oftentimes we hear about how technology can be a problem. Here it is going to good use here, particularly with children. They're so vulnerable. They need this kind of help.
Absolutely. I think so often we have issues with screen time with children. They're so fixated on their video games, on their screens, but now this technology is going to be something that could potentially be very helpful for them to help diagnose disorders before even these structured interviews. I think it will give us kind of a earlier heads up to notice perhaps we should be looking a little closer at our kids, at different symptoms they might be showing of anxiety or depression.
Yeah, I know. And this is your field. You do a lot of research in this area. You're also telling me about how they're using virtual reality and robots and all that. Yeah. Tell us about that.
So there's some fascinating stuff. In 2017, they came out with the Wobot, which is kind of a chatbot that offers almost therapeutic opportunity through a robot-type device.
Wow.
You can even use your handheld devices, and it uses cognitive behavioral therapeutic approaches and different kinds of approaches to allow people who can't go see a therapist, either financially or because of access issues. It gives them that opportunity to have that handheld opportunity to have that conversation and to discuss issues that are challenging for them.
Boy, and catching this early is so important for these young people because it impacts their whole life. I mean, school, socialization, and everything. And if we can help them, I mean, this can really make a difference.
Absolutely. A lot of times when you have younger children, they can't often express how they're feeling through words. So often they will complain of a stomach ache or a headache, dizziness, different types of things. They might withdraw from friends. So they might show some symptoms that might look a little different than the adult anxiety and depression, those kind of anxious and depressive symptoms we see in adults.
Well, let's hope that AI and a lot of technology can really make a difference. We want you to come back. Give us some updates on that because this is a very important topic for a lot of children and a lot of families as well.
I think it's incredibly promising, and I'm excited to see them generalize it to other people as well.
Dr. Silton, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
For every toy review or video gameplay posted online, there come concerns. Dr. Nava Silton is a developmental psychologist.
All of those skill sets are fantastic. I just think parents need to be really careful about privacy controls, about cyberbullying.
While ID Tech says they are very careful about safety when it comes to their campers, others wonder whether it's healthy to have kids at computers all summer long.
I think you need to get your kid outside. You need to have them interacting with other kids.
Balance is key, so while they're building skills for the future, make sure the kids have some old-fashioned fun, too. Stacey Delicat, Fox 5 News.
So why are we so obsessed with predicting the future, our future? We took that question to psychology professor Nava Silton at Marymount Manhattan College.
The biggest fear that many of us have is the fear of uncertainty, the fear that we don't know what's coming up ahead. When someone gives us some kind of lens into what that future could look like, that really gives us a sense of control. It gives us a sense of comfort and a sense of certainty that we don't typically have.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
Whether or not the sun does come out tomorrow is anyone's guess. Maybe there are clouds or even storms on the horizon. The only thing we know for certain is that people will always try to figure it out. Robert Moses, Fox 5 News.